This video is sponsored by HelloFresh. Welcome back. So last time around, we left the timeline in early June 2023, just as this build was starting. And aside from stripping out the kitchen and carefully putting the cabinetry to one side, the main job to begin with was to dig out the foundations for the new extension. Now, Victorian terraced houses like these weren't generally made with foundations. They'd often just have a brick footing, an extra layer of bricks, so the wall thickened down towards the base, largely relying on heavy clay soil and the rest of the terrace to stop themselves from falling down. Victorian houses were often built speculatively, with nobody really expecting them to last as long as they have. And this approach clearly isn't appropriate for the current building standards. Now, the nature of terraced houses, the way they all support each other, also means that there's no side access to the rear of the property, and because the gardens back onto each other, there's no rear access either. So everything had to come through the house. This is one of the reasons that we decided to refurbish the whole of the ground floor. The chances of keeping the entrance hallway pristine was pretty much negligible, so it made sense just to get everything done. Of course, the size of these houses meant that it was impossible to get digging equipment through to the narrow hallway to the back, so all those foundations had to be dug by hand and all the soil and spoil bagged up and carried through to the front. Let's talk about waste disposal, waste management for a minute, because it's an essential part of any build. Terraced houses like these don't have driveways. You have to park a skip, a dumpster on the street. And for this, my local authority charges a license fee. Here in London, that's £130 for every 2 weeks. So 20 weeks would have been about £1,300, close to $1,700. That's a lot. But in the overall cost of the build, it's not terrible. Unless, of course, like us, you also have residence parking, in which case you have to apply to have the parking bay outside your house suspended. For a 19-week build like ours, parking a skip outside would have cost £11,882, over $15,000. And that's just to park it, by the way. You still have to pay £400 per skip to have the waste taken away. So it's no surprise then that most properties around here that are having work done simply shutter off the front garden and use that to store the waste, having it removed every week or two by van where it can be disposed of responsibly. While all that digging was going on, there were a couple of other things that needed looking at as well. One of the quirks of this type of property is that the front half of the house is slightly higher than the back, with a step down into the back kitchen. Because we were extending the utility room into what was my old office, we really wanted to have the floor on the same level as the kitchen. But we weren't sure if this would involve digging the floor out or if there was enough space underneath. Fortunately, with this middle room emptied, it was simply a matter of pulling up a couple of floorboards to take a look, and it turns out that there was plenty of space down there, so no digging needed. The original lath and plaster ceilings of the old kitchen were also pulled down. That's a filthy job that I've done myself in the past, and I never ever want to do again. And this exposed the unholy mess of wiring and pipework from underneath the upper floor, as well as curiosities like the original cement hearth that would have served the upstairs fireplace. Built long before central heating, these houses would have had open fires upstairs, and the cement hearth helped keep the fire contained. While all this was going on, me and Mrs. 10 Minutes were starting to have discussions with kitchen and window companies. Kitchens and windows can have some of the longest lead times on a build like this. So although we didn't actually have the space opened up yet, we had the plans, and starting discussions with kitchen companies seemed like a good idea. I'll tell you what else is a good idea, and that's today's video sponsor, HelloFresh. Now, me and Mrs. 10 Minutes love spending time in this space, especially now it's finished. And of course, we cook our own recipes a lot. But as we both lead pretty busy lives, we really appreciate how HelloFresh takes care of us. A few nights a week with a box of goodness, full of fresh ingredients, and with a foolproof recipe card for each meal that even I can follow. Look, it has pictures. If you're new to HelloFresh, then the process couldn't be easier. All you got to do is just visit HelloFresh.co.uk or download the app, Sign up and choose the recipes that you want to make, and all the ingredients you need are delivered right to your door. We're giving these barbecue cheeseburgers a go tonight, and I really like how you get everything you need for the meal in exactly the quantities that you require. Not too much and not too little. So there's next to no waste and absolutely no worries about how you use the rest of that jar or packet of whatever it is. Almost all the packaging is recyclable too, and the meal boxes work out way cheaper than eating out and are a much healthier option than takeaways. Whether you're looking for a recipe that's low in calories, fully vegetarian, or a quick and easy classic like this one, then HelloFresh will have you covered. And with over 100 recipes a month, the menus are varied, so there's always something new to try. Go to HelloFresh.co.uk and use the offer code WORKSHOP60 to get 60% off your first box with HelloFresh and 20% off the next 2 months and free desserts for life. Yeah, you heard that right. Not 3, but free desserts for life. Link and codes are in the description, and thank you so much to HelloFresh for sponsoring this video. So the first kitchen company we tried didn't really do anything for us. They basically gave us a version of the kitchen that we had previously, not really taking into account any of the new build and the extra space that we had. And it was a few weeks into June that we found someone they were actually quite happy with. We agreed the plans and paid the deposit. Back at the house, the guys were not only digging out the foundations, but we also had to move a manhole and inspection chamber over the drains. And while we were there, obviously it makes sense to also replace and relay the existing drains that were visible. For the drains that were inaccessible under the house, we had a precautionary drain inspection done by CCTV. Thankfully, all was well, but that's a 2-minute video I never want to see again. And the price that those guys charge makes YouTube Premium seem like an absolute bargain. Towards the end of the month, almost 4 weeks after they started, the foundations were dug, fully inspected, signed off and shuttered up, ready to have the foundations poured. Fortunately, this didn't have to come through the house in wheelbarrows. It was pumped through very efficiently, adding the aggregate into the mix before being hosed in, and the entire foundations were poured in about half an hour. Weeks to dig out and filled in minutes. The next week, the existing walls had the plaster removed so that the original bricks could be reclaimed for later use, and an exploratory hole had been made in the kitchen wall just to take a look at what was there. And that's not all. There were also a few holes punched through in the wall higher up at first floor level into the bathroom and the back bedroom. These would be for the props that would help support the upper wall while the brickwork was removed lower down. By the week following, that side wall was almost gone. The upper half of the house supported on strong boy props, and the ceiling joists held in place by a framework of 4x2s. Yeah, don't let anyone tell you that you need a high-tech solution. We're into the second week of July now, and we were about to go away on holiday, so we paid a quick visit on Saturday the 8th, only to find that the back of the house was completely shuttered up, and we could only see progress by poking our heads through the windows. This is one of those odd things. It is our house, but it is the builder's site and their responsibility to ensure safety and security. So you can't presume to always have access when you want, even though you own the property. Progress had certainly been made, and the floor of the soon-to-be utility room was completely exposed to show just how much space there was underneath the floorboards. The next couple of weeks were a tough time for me personally. I lost my father suddenly while we were away on holiday, and as you can imagine, when we came back, my attention was elsewhere. It was towards the end of July that we were next able to get on site, and the main steel supporting the sidewall was already in, albeit just supported on props, and the whole of the back corner of the house had been removed at ground floor level. At the boundary, the bottom rows of engineering bricks had been laid, and we could start to get a sense of the space we were about to have, even if the back garden did resemble a builder's yard. Make no mistake, this was going to be a workshop-sized kitchen. What a waste. So that brings us more or less up to date on the timeline for now. Be sure to join me in the next one when the walls start to go up, all the steels are in, the props come down, and I'll explain in a little bit more detail why we're doing the steels the hard way. I'll call this one done for now though. Thanks so much for taking a look. Leave a comment, hit subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. All right, take care.